This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome to the Fan Report Show made by fans for fans, powered by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and with me is Andrew's going to give us this week's topics.
Well, it's draft week, and by the time you're listening to this, it's probably draft night, and there's a ton of rumors swirling around Cade Cunningham and the Pistons. Are we worried? We'll find out. We'll talk about all the rumors. And we have some hot takes for you. It's the Fan Report.
It's finally the week that we have been talking about for the last, almost 2 months now? I mean, well, in all reality, we've been kind of talking about it since, I don't even know, the middle of last year-ish. It's been a while.
Yeah. Since
the middle of, last season, we've been kind of going through the prospects, picking out who we like. Our thoughts have changed on certain guys, and our thoughts have kind of stayed the same on others. Guys that we've liked more and more as it's become more of a realistic option for us are guys like Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green. Jalen Green's one that really jumped up our board quite a bit as the year went by. Jalen Suggs kind of flip-flopped with Jalen Green, so to speak. And Evan Mobley's kind of jumped up our board as well a little bit. So from the minute the ping pong ball went the Pistons' way, there was never
even before, there was a consistent number one in everybody's
right.
board.
But from the minute that we knew we had the number one pick, there was no doubt in who we want the Pistons to take. No doubt. It's been the Cade Brigade, the Cade Train, the Motorcade, since that ping pong ball went our way. Mm-hmm. And we have not dropped off of that in any way.
Well, I feel like you're setting it up for saying you're about to drop off of it.
I'm not. I will, however, attempt to sell you on dropping off of it.
Oh, Lord.
And I know it's not going to be a successful attempt.
Please tell me this is like a devil's advocate, so.
Yeah, obviously.
Okay.
Cade Cunningham is my guy. There is nobody else, and I still stand by. If the Pistons do not take Cade number one overall, I think Troy Weaver should be fired. Mm-hmm. I will stand by that. I said it last week. I'll say it again. You know what? I'll say it a third time. If Troy Weaver does not take Cade Cunningham number one overall in this draft, he should be fired. Just my opinion. But
I feel there's a caveat to the way you're wording that.
But
if he doesn't take him number one overall, so assuming he were to trade back and not pick number one overall.
No, I still think he should be fired.
Okay.
If you don't end up with Cade Cunningham in this draft, he should be fired.
Okay.
Unless you get a Giannis or a Luka or something along those lines in a trade, which will never happen, obviously. So,
well, we did have one trade rumor come through today.
I mean, there's been trade rumors.
I don't know if you heard it.
And my butt was, but we seem to be the only ones who are stand pat on it. There's a lot of media out there fanning the smoke that the Pistons are looking to trade the pick or are undecided on who the guy is going to be at number one. I saw a report today saying the Pistons are totally undecided, and it's all due to Jalen Green's stellar workout with the team.
Which I'm not surprised. Jalen Green is eye candy for basketball.
He is.
He's a human highlight reel. It's not surprising to me that his workout was stellar.
Isn't one of his deficiencies the fact that he may not even be able to shoot in the big league?
Well, he's very streaky as a shooter, but I mean, his form looks really good. So I'm not personally too worried about it, but it's a possibility. Sure.
Doesn't that kind of sound a little bit like De'Aaron Fox? He's a streaky shooter. His form looks good, but there's times where he just goes dead cold and it usually lasts a long time.
Yeah, but his athleticism is way above De'Aaron Fox where he can just make it work.
Well, I mean, De'Aaron Fox is pretty damn athletic.
Yeah, but Jalen Green can get to the basket almost whichever way he wants because
so can De'Aaron Fox. Do you know what De'Aaron Fox averaged this year?
Yeah, he 24, 23 a game?
25.8 and 7.6.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn good.
No, I'm not saying De'Aaron Fox is bad by any stretch of the imagination.
De'Aaron Fox can get to the basket any way he wants. Anyways, go ahead.
I was saying, well, if it's premature, we can push it. But for example, the trade that came through today, I don't know if you saw, but there was actually a pretty strong contingent of Pistons fans that it was pretty. A lot of people said absolutely not, but there was a pretty strong contingent that said they would do the trade with OKC. I don't know if you saw the trade rumor that came through, but it was reported that OKC offered the 6th overall pick in SGA for number 1.
I mean, I won't lie to you and say that that's not enticing, because SGA is a very enticing player, and 6 overall is still a good pick. But again, is that going to be as good as Cade Cunningham? And the argument of, like, the bad fantasy football player argument of, well, I'm giving you 2 guys that put up 10 points in exchange for your guy that gives up that puts up 19.
Well, she puts up what, 23? I'm saying I wouldn't do the trade, but I was just curious what your.
No, I'm just saying, like, in terms of total value that SGA brings, and this other guy you would get at number 6, who's likely a Davion Mitchell or a
Book Knight, maybe
Book Knight or a Kuminga,
possibly.
Like, to add the value that those 2 guys combined bring, is it still up to Cade Cunningham? And even then, if it is, it's still 1 guy versus 2. You know, like, 1 guy in the NBA is a big difference.
If I'm getting SGA, then both Davion Mitchell and Book Knight are no longer a fit. Right.
So you got to hope a guy like Kuminga drops, and then hope he works out. Or you're potentially reaching if you don't decide to trade back again.
But my whole hold up with that is you're just giving me your pick to move up, and then the compensation. You told me to move at 5 spots. Compensation is SGA, when I'm pretty sure I have to pay SGA max contract.
Oh, absolutely,
like next year. So
absolutely, you would give up all of the cheap years that you would enjoy by bringing in Cade Cunningham.
All sorts of flexibility.
And in all reality, I think Cade Cunningham easily beats out the value that SGA brings. Easily.
I view Cade Cunningham's like floor as an SGA. Like that's.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
An SGA with better court vision. That's like his floor to me.
I don't disagree at all. So for me to really hop off this pick, it's almost impossible. It's almost impossible for me to be willing to go back or give up on taking the opportunity to take Cade Cunningham. And my favorite thing about all of it is when the report came out, I believe it was 2 days ago, this past weekend, that the Rockets are potentially no longer looking at trying to trade up for number 1 because it's just it's futile at this point. The price is too high. And
I mean, we just turned on SGA
and they claim to be sold on Jalen Green. And then in the comment section of the article, it's all sour Rocket fans saying, "Well, we didn't want him anyway. Jalen Green's better." You sure about that? Because aren't you the same people that are like, "How can we get him? Let's find any way to get him." And I've said it before. Like I don't want a bunch of picks for number 1.
James Edwards actually did a joint article with a Rockets beat writer, and basically they were going back and forth about trade value and what the Rockets would be willing to give up for SGA and what the Pistons would be looking to get. I mean, for the number 1 pick, and what the Pistons will be willing to take. And basically, the Rockets beat reporter was adamant that if he was Rockets GM, he wouldn't be willing to give up more than number 2 and future lottery protected first from the Wizards. And I'm like, absolutely not.
And there's a reason he's a beat writer, not a GM in this league.
Yeah. And James Edwards was like, that's not even like a starting point.
No, that you don't even begin the conversation at that point. Like, bare minimum to even begin the conversation should be, and again, I would still say absolutely not, is 2-23 and an unprotected first.
100%.
Not next year, because I don't think they technically can, but the year following. Yeah. Like, that's bare minimum starting talking point for that number 1 pick. And I still would say no to that. You'd still have to sweeten the deal. And frankly, I don't think there is a way to sweeten that deal, because I don't want, like I said, I don't want a bunch of picks. I want a guy who's going to produce at an elite level, a superstar level right now, or not necessarily right now, but if not next year, the year after. Like a guy that I know is going to produce. Because what would we be hoping that comes to fruition with that unprotected pick from the Rockets? That it becomes number 1? Oh, wait. It is number 1. What we have now is number 1. And it's a guy that is the clear number 1 potential superstar.
There was a meme I saw on Twitter, and it was Family Guy, Peter Griffin, like opening a box. He goes, "Yeah, I have Cade Cunningham right now, but this box could be anything. It could even be Cade Cunningham."
Like, that's what I don't understand, why Pistons, like some of the Pistons fans out there are saying, "Oh, I take a bunch of picks." But why? So that you hope it turns into something like Cade Cunningham? that you hope multiples of these turn into something like Cade Cunningham. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me, and I'm not willing to push back this rebuild for another 2-3 years so that we can hopefully get another number one pick. Like, we have it now. We have the opportunity to finish this thing now, so let's get it done.
Yeah, and not to mention, you're looking at the probability of finally putting butts in seats. Cade Cunningham is going to bring people to the arena. He's going to bring attention to his team.
That too, because LCA hasn't had a lot of those.
Future first-round picks aren't going to put butts in seats. It's just going to make you lose money
fact,
for more and more
I would
years.
argue that just about the only thing that's sold out at LCA is concerts.
Yeah.
So, because it ain't Wings games and it ain't Pistons games selling the place out. Mm-hmm. Yet anyways.
But so real quick.
Do you want me to give you my devil's advocate argument for hopping off of that number one pick?
Did you want to do that or the Woj tweet first?
Let's do the Woj tweet because we're already on the topic.
Okay. So Adrian Wojnarowski, sorry, I fumbled that. He tweeted out.
Butcher the name anymore?
Yes, I can. He tweeted out that Detroit's internal meetings are still revolving around 3 players for the number one pick on Thursday night. Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, Evan Mobley, sources tell ESPN. Detroit isn't fully there yet on committing to Cunningham with their first overall choice. And again, we kind of touched on this to start the show, but I just want to ask you flat out, are you buying this?
No, absolutely not. You don't jump and cheer and scream when you get the number one pick if you still have to decide on who you're going for. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it's great to have, but you jump and cheer because you got the best guy in the draft and you know it right away. And that's what they did, and that's how it is. And frankly, you're talking about a guy in Cade Cunningham that's already openly and vocally expressed he wants to be here. He wants to play for the city of Detroit. He wants to play for the Detroit Pistons. That is not something that a lot of people say. Not many people are excited about coming to the city of Detroit. Look at Ndamukong Suh when he was here. He didn't want to be here. He openly said he didn't want to be here.
To be fair, I feel like if Houston had the one pick, you'd probably be saying the same thing about Houston. But
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree, but again, he wants to be here.
No, yeah, I agree. It's not like he's coming out and saying or being silent on it, or
he's not pulling an Eli Manning, or
hinting he's going to pull Eli Manning.
Like, what was his face said?
Avery Johnson.
He's not pulling an Eli Manning. He says he wants to be here. Yeah. So that just goes to show how awful of a take that was by Avery Johnson. Just saying.
Yeah,
but you don't get that a ton here in this town. Like, we aren't a free agent destination. We don't go out and get the big names on the market that say, "Oh, my first option is Detroit." Well, Cade Cunningham's basically saying this is his first and only option.
Not to mention, I don't think you're going to be getting reports of the Houston Rockets coming out and saying the price is too high to move up to 1, or us turning down SGA if we're not planning on taking Cade Cunningham.
Right.
Like
if Jalen Green was their guy, and we know that the Rockets want Cade Cunningham, why would the Pistons have such a high asking price for number one to move back to 2? Like, it just doesn't make sense because they know they could easily move back to number 2 and get Jalen Green.
I mean, they're going to set the price high. Let's be honest, but like, I don't think it would have gotten to the point where Houston's like, all right, I'm out on the trade. But
right. Eventually, like if the Pistons really wanted Jalen Green, knowing how badly the Rockets want Cade Cunningham, they'd eventually drop down to a price that Rockets are willing to give in on.
That's where I would call for a firing, is if we took Jalen Green 1. That's where
absolutely.
I would call for.
And that's my point. Like, if you don't at number 1 don't take Cade Cunningham, you need to be fired. But that's the Darko type move, where you have all this talent that's known talent and superstar potential right there for you, and you take the unknown. Like, you can't do that. But
yeah, so I just wanted to throw out that tweet, get your take on it. But what is your sales pitch? You scare me with these because you tend to be very convincing.
I can be, can't I?
And I swear to God, if you say something that convinces me off Cade Cunningham, I'm leaving the show.
My sales pitch is as such, and it's a little bit tougher to push it with a guy like Cade Cunningham because of his length.
This is going to have to be the most verbal gymnastics you've ever done in the show.
Oh, I'm going to try. I'm going to propose. And again, this is devil's advocate, but the argument I'm going to make is to take Evan Mobley at number 1 overall. Not Jalen Green, not Cade Cunningham. And here's the reasoning.
Nope.
1, you have your point guard in Killian Hayes, which, you do believe he is your point guard. And frankly, you probably could trade back, so you could get a point guard at number 3 if you wanted to, or 2. Well, you'd be taking Evan Mobley, but you can get a point guard in that trade is my point. 2, looking at the teams that have won in this league in the last few years, 3, 4, or the teams that continue to win in this league and are constantly competing, how many of them have an elite tier point guard versus an elite tier big man? I'll give you a hint. It's like almost all elite tier big men over point guard. You look at the Lakers, Anthony Davis. You look at the Nuggets, Nikola Jokic.
I mean, you can argue LeBron's their point guard.
Okay, but without Anthony Davis, they ain't winning shit, is my point.
I mean, with them, they still haven't been winning shit.
They won an
Actually,
NBA
they won
title.
last year.
They won a title. It's a Mickey Mouse title, but it was a title. You look at a team like the Bucks, Giannis, 7 feet tall, and does everything on the floor. I mentioned the Nuggets. You look at the Jazz, Rudy Gobert. Granted, he's kind of a special one because he's a little more old school. But you look at all these teams that are winning. You look at the Sixers, Joel Embiid. You look at all these teams that are succeeding, constantly competing in this league and are better than the rest. What do they have? What do they all have in common? Elite big men. I can't even tell you if any of those teams have a superstar point guard because they don't. I don't consider Ben Simmons superstar caliber. I don't consider Jamal Murray superstar caliber. Drew Holiday, not even close. And name the point guard on LA that not name LeBron because he's not a point guard, he's a forward, but name the actual point guard on LA, it's a different dude every night. That unicorn style big man that can handle the ball, step out and shoot, play inside, also play defense, and have the ball in his hands and facilitate, that's the new way of the league. That's how you win in today's league because there's really, look at Kevin Durant, another example. 7-footer, can do everything on the floor. Guess who fits that model of a 7-footer that can do anything on the floor you ask him to, whether it be facilitate, handle the ball, shoot the ball all over the place, play inside and out, offensively and defensively. It's Evan Mobley.
I mean, that was a big selling point before we even knew what pick we were getting.
Exactly. Exactly. So my argument here is if you want to win in this league, it's not to take the elite point guard. It's not to have the point guard that is top tier that can do it all because there's a lot of those in this league. There are. And most of them aren't winning. In fact, outside of Steph Curry, I'd say none of them are winning. Big men are winning games now. Big men are winning titles now. They put the team above everybody else. And that's where Evan Mobley could come in, considering we do have a wing shooter in Sadiq Bey, another wing player who's a really solid two-way player in Jeremy Grant, one of the better ones in the league. You have a guy who is a spark plug in Isaiah Stewart, and you can find your point guard somewhere, whether it be trading this pick to move back to take Evan Mobley or signing one. They're out there. You got tons of money, and I promise you if you have Jeremy Grant, Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, and Evan Mobley on your team, you're probably going to be an attractive team to come play with, especially for a point guard who's saying, holy shit, look at all these toys I have to play with. Teams that have the elite 7-footers are the teams winning titles right now, or damn near close to.
You sound an awful lot like Troy Weaver right now. Troy Weaver has not been shy about his love of 7-footers. Here's one caveat, though, that I will add to a very solid argument. All the teams you listed, like Giannis on the Bucks. I mean, I wouldn't call Aiden elite, but Aiden on the Suns. Jokic. Really the Suns, yeah, but I was just saying them because they're in the finals. Jokic on the Nuggets. All these teams have very high level to elite scorers to complement that big as well. We don't have that.
You could argue Jeremy Grant could be that guy. You could easily make an argument for that. They have, but see, the thing is with all of those guys, they're the number one scorer on the team, and Evan Mobley would be too. You need a really good number 2 scorer. Who does Giannis have as an elite tier scorer on his team? Chris Middleton ain't elite tier. Ain't even close.
Does Jokic lead the Nuggets in scoring, or is Jamal Murray?
Well, Jamal Murray missed most of the year, and they still made.
No, I know, but like the year before when they actually went deep,
probably Jokic. If I had to guess. And if not, it was close.
Yeah, it's definitely close.
The Nuggets went deep this year. Don't get it twisted. Yeah, without him. They had Facundo Campazzo as their point guard, and they still went deep. That's my point. Like, without Jamal Murray, they were still one of the best teams in the league. And it's because of Jokic. Dude puts up 40 to 50 almost on a regular basis.
And my other argument is, you could argue that the rarest position to to find, or the rarest type of player to find in the NBA, is an actually good point forward. They're few and far between.
Well, that's why they call him the unicorn.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying is Evan Mobley is that unicorn. That's my point. He's
not a point forward. He's more of a point center.
Okay, doesn't matter.
I'm talking about point forward as in Cade
is.
Cunningham. I'm talking about Cade Cunningham as point forward.
Fair. I don't consider that really that rare anymore. There's a lot of wing players that play point forward in this.
I mean, how many can you name? You have Luka, you have LeBron. You could argue Zion.
You absolutely can argue Zion, Luka, LeBron. I would argue there's more of those than there are point centers.
For point centers, I'd say Jokic.
And that's it. And my point, exactly. I mean, you want to argue Durant, you want to argue Giannis.
Mason Plumlee.
No. You want to argue Giannis, Durant, and Jokic. I'll agree with you on that. I'll give into that. But point forwards are out there a lot now. I mean, Jeremy Grant, you can argue, controlled the ball a lot for the Pistons last year. And they played off of him a lot as a more of a point forward. Granted, that wasn't what he did the most, but he did it. He can do it. I mean, that type of player, let me put it this way. Asking a wing to play point forward is a hell of a lot easier to do. It's a hell of a lot easier to do that than asking a center to play point also. And that's what you get.
I think it always entirely depends on the player.
It does, but
whoever you're asking just has to have the court vision, the instincts needed to be able to.
Another one I'd throw out there is Draymond. That's another one. Granted, he doesn't have the scoring capability, but he has the elite tier facilitating ability. Mm-hmm. But that's my point, is you have the potential to have a guy that the rest of the league covets and wins championships, because there's so few guys out there. There's so few players out there that can play the point and also play the center. They can guard any position on the floor. They can shoot from anywhere on the floor. They can handle the ball. They can pass the ball. They can play both sides of the ball at any position, inside and out. And that's what's special about a guy like Evan Mobley, is he is up in that level, that category of the guys, like, in terms of the prototype. I'm not saying the skill level or what he's going to be, but of the guys like the Giannis's, the KDs, the Jokic's, like the Embiids, he's up there in that prototype. Is he exactly like them? No, he's got his own differences, but the play style fits. And that play style is winning titles right now. It's not the elite tier point guards. It's not the Trae Youngs winning the titles right now. It's not the Colin Sextons. They're not even making the playoffs. It's the guys that are 7 feet tall and you can't guard them because there's so few of them in the league.
And now here's my my third argument is, even if you're higher on Mobley than Cade Cunningham,
which I'm not.
There's no, I know. If the devil is higher than, there's no way you should be sitting at one taking him.
No, and I don't disagree.
You cannot
with that.
convince me that you should take Evan Mobley at number one, just because of the way the draft is viewed.
Just because of what you can get for your number one pick, and that's my point. Like, this is where I'm saying is, if you could argue that Evan Mobley could be the guy that you have graded at the same level as Cade Cunningham, but because of that, and because of the ability that Evan Mobley brings to the table and the type of player he brings to the table, you offer the Rockets that number one overall pick, get your point guard out of it, and you take Evan Mobley at number two, and then you get your point guard out of whatever you can find. That's my argument is, yeah, sure, trade back. Take Evan Mobley. He's a guy on the same tier as Cade Cunningham because of the ability that the intangibles that he brings that are so important and special in this league.
Yeah, I'm still going to need more convincing on, as much as I love Mobley. If I was picking number 3, I'm taking Mobley. But if
I was picking number 2, I'd be taking Mobley.
I'd be taking Green. Personally.
I'd be taking Mobley.
But comparing to Cade Cunningham, there is more risk associated with Mobley. One is the fact that he's only 215 pounds at 7 feet tall. He can get pushed out of his position.
A lot of guys come into the league undersized, though, in terms of their weight. It's easy to add weight in this league. Players do it all. Look at Giannis. Mm-hmm. There's a perfect example of a guy who added weight and became a monster as he came into this league. He's a perfect example of it. Dude's added, 40 pounds as he's come into this league?
No, he's added a ton
exactly.
Of weight.
Let me just put it this way: a guy being a little bit underweight for his position and size coming into this league does not worry me in any way because I know he can add it on that frame, especially.
If you had a crystal ball and able to see the future, and you were guaranteed that Evan Mobley was basically going to be Chris Bosh 2.0,
which is what his argument is. Which is what
are you taking him at no? Are you moving back to 3 to take him as the devil's advocate?
Well, do I have the same crystal ball that tells me what Cade Cunningham turns into? I mean, let me put it this way. It's hard as hell to say no to a Hall of Fame player.
Yeah.
And that's what he would be. So
it's just there's a lot of arguments to be made that Cade Cunningham also has a Hall of Fame ceiling.
And I don't disagree with that. Yeah. But if I know that Evan Mobley is going to be a Hall of Fame player, like a Chris Bosh 2.0, a Hall of Fame player, it's hard for me to say no, especially when I can get assets in return just to move back to get them. You know what I mean? It's hard to say no to that. But, and now here I'm going to flip the argument. Here's some of the reasons why I would still take Cade over Evan Mobley. You're talking about...
Did I name any of them?
No, actually you did not.
Damn.
You are talking about a not your run-of-the-mill point guard here.
Yeah, point forward. Guy who can play 4 positions on the court.
I'm going to go a little bit beyond than just calling him a point forward because we're talking about a point guard who is 6'8" with excellent length, which is something that Dwayne Casey and Troy Weaver both love. Playing a natural point guard. Mm-hmm. Like this isn't just a point forward whose natural position is forward, but he can also facilitate and handle the ball.
Yeah, I call Luka a natural point guard, but I refer to him as a point forward.
This is a natural point guard that is 6'8". Like this is Magic Johnson 2.0 we're talking about, not LeBron. Terrible guys to list, but in terms of the type of player, this guy is more of a Magic Johnson than he is a small forward.
In terms of skill set, like I'm not saying that his ceiling is Magic Johnson. I'm saying like in terms of skill set, not Magic Johnson also, similar to Cade, was not as athletic, but was an amazing facilitator, could get to his spot, no issues. Basically, he saw the game quicker than anyone else around him was seeing it. And that's what I would say about Cade.
Would you say this? And I have seen this argument. I have seen this from a few different people. Cade Cunningham, although having a much higher ceiling than Evan Mobley, Cade Cunningham also comes with a few more question marks due to some of his deficiencies than Evan Mobley does.
I would disagree.
Because you can argue that some of the shooting with Cade Cunningham is a little streaky and sometimes not great. You can argue that his lack of athleticism doesn't quite work in the NBA.
It does, though. We've seen it.
With one guy. One guy has proven to be that he can do it in the history of the league. In the history of the recent history of the league. Other guys with a lack of athleticism struggle in this league. Luka is a special player that I don't understand how he does it because he straight up looks like you and I out there, but he straight up balls.
No, I mean, you got not the same position, but like Jokic, for example, is another one.
Jokic is a fair point, but again, that you can't argue that because he's a point center. It's a completely different type of role than what Cade Cunningham would be asked to play.
Tatum, not a facilitator, but also not a great athlete. But
Tatum is an abuser, though. I don't know that Cade Cunningham is quite the bruiser that Jason Tatum is. He is
like the exact same size. I think Jason Tatum has like an inch on him, right?
Yeah,
maybe?
But I think you underrate Jason Tatum's athleticism quite a bit. That dude's got some athletic prowess in there. He can show it, and he's got it. I would argue Jason Tatum is more of an athlete than Cade Cunningham is. And I don't think many people would disagree with that.
I think they're about right on the exact same athletic scale.
I would probably disagree. I think Jason Tatum's a little bit more of an athlete than Cade Cunningham. But that's beside the point.
Yeah.
But again, when you see guys,
as you're saying,
but when you and that's not a guy running the point forward either. He's very much a wing. So that's
what I said. He's not a point forward.
My argument is that with Cade Cunningham, a big question mark being the point guard is the lack of athleticism is a big question mark. It is something that does worry me a little bit because that is a position that does demand a lot of athleticism from him. So Again, and like I said, I have seen other people say that while Cade does have the higher ceiling and the bigger potential than Evan Mobley, there are more question marks involved with him. And I don't necessarily agree with it, but it does make me think a little bit. It does, because the biggest one being the lack of athleticism from Cade Cunningham. And I don't really compare Luka Doncic and Cade Cunningham in the type of player they are, because I don't know that I see the brain in Cade Cunningham that I see with Luka.
I think 100%.
I
That's
don't.
my biggest selling point on him.
But I don't. And the reason I say that is because Luka Doncic has a brain that I have never seen in this league, and I don't think Cade Cunningham possesses that. I think Cade Cunningham's a very smart player. I do. I think he's got a lot of basketball IQ. I just don't think there is a player in this league that I have ever seen play live that has the same type of basketball IQ as Luka Doncic. He may have the greatest IQ of any player I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I don't think Cade Cunningham's quite that level.
Luka Doncic also has a knack for being like, I'll watch him. Wait, why are you taking that? Oh, okay.
Exactly. Like, why are you? Oh, that's what you saw. He is just one of those players that I don't know that we will ever see again in our lifetime. With the lack of athleticism, but the ability to straight up destroy anybody who's in his way, doing anything he wants with the ball. It's quite amazing, actually. It almost makes me feel like I need to go out into the driveway and try a few things. Because it's like, wait, if he can do that, I can do that, right? No, the answer is no, I can't. Cade Cunningham needs to be the pick.
There was an article, I cannot remember the name of the gentleman who wrote it, but he wrote it for The Athletic. He's a national writer, not a Pistons writer. And it was basically about, there was an article about breaking down what basketball IQ means. And like someone wrote like a book on it apparently, and he was referencing it also. And he was basically talking about how players process the game and how quickly they process the game versus other players. And he was referencing Luka a lot. And then he got to a point where he started talking about Cade Cunningham and saying that the way Cade Cunningham, the rate at which he processes the game, he showed he referenced specific plays and obviously embedded like highlights in the article and stuff like that. And it was just basically talking about like the rate at which Cade Cunningham processes the game is off the charts, and it's at the likes we haven't seen outside of guys like a Luka Doncic. Like he said, one of the quotes he said was, Luka makes it look prettier, but Cade gets there faster.
That's kind of what I was going to say is Luka dazzles with the way he does things. And saying it that he makes it look prettier, sure, that's a way to put it. I don't necessarily agree that Cade does it faster, because I don't care how quick he is. Like
not quick, like Cade finds the straight line to the end goal, whereas Luka has the flashy way of getting there. Basically, that's what he was getting at.
I don't necessarily think that I would agree with that, saying that Cade Cunningham finds the straight line quicker than Luka does. Or, I don't necessarily agree with that, because sometimes that line isn't the right one. Mm-hmm. And that's the way basketball just kind of works, is the straight line isn't always the way. And sometimes you have to do a little bit of dazzling to make it work. Mm-hmm. And we see that with guys, not just Luka, but we see it with guys like Steph. He does things that make you go, what is he doing? What? Oh, that's what he was doing. Because there was no other option then to do that for it to work. So
yeah,
sometimes
there was a play he actually put in the article, and I believe it was against the Oklahoma State game in the was it round of 32 that was played, or Sweet 16? But it was a play where they forced Cade right in a pick and roll, and then they brought up a second guy to double him, basically making a bet that Cade would not be able to blow past both guys. And they were right, because Cade's not that fast. And so they basically forced him down to the baseline, and falling out of bounds, Cade makes a pass to, you look at the play, like there's no way he should be able to see the cutter out like from his peripheral. Like it looks like it's completely out of his view. Just a dart to the cutter for an open dunk. Like it was pretty cool to watch. And
see,
basically what he's saying is I'm pretty sure what he's getting at is Luka probably would have gone to the same guy in a flashier way. like by blowing by the guy versus making like an out of bounds.
And here's
pass,
where I'm going to say this is where I would argue that Luka Doncic's IQ would be so much higher than Cade Cunningham's in that situation, is because Luka never would have put him in a situation where he's falling out of bounds. Luka never would have dribbled his way into the corner into another.
Oh, it wasn't into the corner.
Well, into the baseline or the sideline.
He was trying to beat his man to the baseline.
Right. But that caused him to dribble into a rock in a hard place and then have to make an incredible, unlikely, low percentage play out of it that he did make. Don't get me wrong. He's got the ability to make that play, and he will. But he's also, if he puts himself in that situation again, he probably turns the ball over a lot more than Luka would in that situation also. That's my point, is Luka wouldn't put himself in a situation where he's almost turning the ball over. He would have razzle-dazzled his way out of the first one and made a play out of that.
The point is he's reading the defense even in those situations. Is like that's
which
how,
is
that's
good. That means he's able to recognize when he needs to make a play. You know, he's able to recognize that, okay, this is what the defense is giving me. And that's one of the biggest things I love about Cade, is he's able to see what the defense is giving him, even though he's really not supposed to be able to.
Yeah.
You also have to hope your teammate is making that cut, because if he's not, where you're throwing the ball is, you know. So you got to hope that you also have smart, high basketball IQ teammates. But again, like it's almost like a bad situation where he tried to be smart and make the right play, but it put himself into a bad situation that he made a great play out of. Whereas maybe Luka wouldn't put him in that bad situation. He would have just made the great play. You know, because maybe his teammate who was already...
No one's saying he's better than Luka. Let's put that out there right now.
But that's where I'm saying is the basketball IQ of Luka is something like we've never seen. I really don't think we have. Maybe LeBron. But even though even LeBron, I think his basketball IQ, he makes a lot of mistakes with the way he thinks.
I compare Luka's basketball IQ to like a Larry Bird.
Sure. Wonderful. Perfect example. We never got to see him play.
Yeah.
But... I really like Cade Cunningham a lot. Are there question marks to his game? Yes, there absolutely are. But there are question marks to every single one of these players' games. Like, there is no LeBron James in this draft. But there's one that's pretty damn close. It's probably one of the closest clear number ones we've seen in a long time in a draft. And that's why I'm saying if we don't take Cade Cunningham, you're setting this rebuild and this organization back for not just 1 year, not just 2 years, but 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6, 7 years. Because you have a chance to get the best guy in the draft for the first time since 19, God knows when.
And thank God it's a time where the best guy in the draft is actually someone that's a worthy,
is a clear number one pick. Yeah. And that's what that's why I don't know why that there's even a debate. I don't know if it's just the media just trying to find something to talk about or what.
So that was going to get me to my next thing. Because Troy Weaver actually had an interview today with some reporters. And one of the things that he was asked was about all the trade scenarios coming through. And he said, the question was, is it your expectation that teams that have expressed interest in trading for the number one? Well, sorry, I skipped one of the answers. But actually, I'll just go right to that. Number one pick have pretty much made their best offer now, or do you anticipate coming back to you again over the next 48 hours? And he said, I can't really discuss their offers and what's been out there. Don't believe what you've read. We'll do our due diligence and we'll look at every scenario, vet it out, and do what's best for the Pistons. And then they followed up with, you say you don't believe everything you read. Are they all bunk, or are you getting a lot of calls and offers? And he replied, it's all bunk.
I mean, I bet you there's a lot of... I'd bet you probably 97% of teams or 95% of the teams aren't even calling the Pistons because they know they don't have enough to give them. I think there's probably 2, maybe 3 teams out there that are even making the phone call because otherwise it'd be a waste of their time. They're looking at other opportunities, other scenarios where they can move up to get somebody else they like.
Yeah.
I think...
Well, I was gonna ask you, like, do you think that this is coach speak for I just don't want anything leaked from my end, or are you taking Troy Weaver's word for it that it is all bunk? And it sounds like you're probably taking Troy Weaver's word for it here.
I mean, yes and no. There's a level of coach speak in this, which I think he's more referring to the Pistons not being as willing to trade this pick as people are letting on, is what he's saying is total BS. Like, I don't think the Pistons are really that willing to trade this pick. Let's just say I don't think the Pistons have made that Troy Weaver has made a singular phone call saying, hey, what do you want to give me for number one? Every phone call that has been discussed about the number one pick has been another team calling him. Mm-hmm. He ain't the one willing to trade this pick.
It's him sitting behind that phone waiting for Marlon Brando to give him a call. So I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse.
Exactly. Like there's no...
It better actually be an offer I can't refuse.
But the media has spun it like the Pistons are shopping this pick like it's the auction house. And they're not. And they never were and they never will be. They don't want to trade this pick unless an unbelievable Godfather-like offer comes across their table. Mm-hmm. Comes across the desk. And he ain't the one making the phone call unless he's calling Dallas saying, hey, you want number one? Give me Luka. But I bet you he'd only do that as a joke because that's probably what that would be.
But here's the other thing. Someone asked him, is there a number that if you did entertain a trade offer that you wouldn't want to go below? Is there a tier A of prospects and a B and C?
Oh, God, there clearly is.
He said, no, I wouldn't say that. If they traded me Giannis, it wouldn't matter what pick it was. I don't have a number.
Which is my argument as well. Like, it doesn't matter. You can trade me Giannis for the pick straight up. I don't care. I don't have to even move. I don't even have
the pick.
Yeah, keep the pick. I don't need a pick in this draft. I got Giannis. I got Luka. Like, I don't need that. So, no, again, outside of the ridiculous offers that are video game like, it's not, that stuff. The Pistons aren't looking to trade this pick in my mind. Like,
I agree.
They'll answer the phone for the probably few teams that are calling them just to hear what they have to say. And Troy Weaver's probably saying, nope, not even close. Mm-hmm. Not even close. And frankly, for the other fan bases that are throwing out hot takes on the Twitter sphere and saying, and the OKC Thunder is one of them, but saying, oh, we can get this pick, just trade this, this, and this. Well, if the Rockets are coming out and saying that, granted, or the Rockets in the knows, so to speak, the guys who are in the know in the Rockets organization are coming out saying that the Pistons asking price is too high. I promise you can't beat their offer unless it's a video game like offer like Giannis or Luka or whatever.
I think that's the best evidence for we're taking Cade and stop worrying.
Right. Because again, like that right there made me feel so much better seeing that. And then I see more articles come out today saying they're enamored with Jalen Green and Evan Mobley, and they're totally undecided and they're uneasy in the front office because of it. Like, that right there bothers me. It worried me. Like, I
legitimately think it is. I legitimately think it's boring for a reporter, like for an ESPN reporter, for example, to say, yeah, they're still probably pretty set on Cade Cunningham. No, like they need to
drum up some. They need to drum up some garbage. They need
so if they get even the slightest hint, so they see that Green and Mobley are in for workouts, they're going to run with that and be like, yeah, they're undecided.
They need the slightest hint that something is happening, and they're going to run with it. And the reason the Pistons brought those guys in for workouts, why, is just in case Cade Cunningham decides to put a gas mask on and snort some heroin or something, or snort some cocaine. I don't know what the gas mask would be for in that situation, but who knows? Crazy shit's out there.
Yeah, but I will be shocked if anyone's listening to this on Friday or later, if we're making a podcast about saying Cade Cunningham and Cade Cunningham's now on our team while you're listening. I will be shocked.
If the Pistons take anybody but Cade at number one overall, I will be calling for a picket outside of LCA. A picket line outside of LCA. Fire Troy Weaver right now. Unless something comes out about Cade. I have my asterisks and my caveats here. If something comes out about Cade that, he's got a degenerative knee, a la Todd Gurley, or he really likes to do a ton of drugs in his free time, or he beats up little kids for fun. Like, those are the only things that would make me say, all right, fine, let's take somebody else. But unless I find out things like that, if Cade Cunningham's not the number one pick, I want us all out in front of LCA protesting.
Yep.
Make LCA. Well, I'm never mind. I won't say this. I was going to say make LCA look like the Palace after the construction crew got done with it. But no, I won't say that. I feel like I'd be in trouble for inciting a riot at that point. So don't do that. Just let's all have a peaceful protest if they don't take Cade number one.
It's actually funny. Jay Billis actually came on tweeted just 2 minutes ago. Cade Cunningham is the most complete basketball player that I can remember coming into the draft. First comment, if the Pistons take Jalen Green instead, they don't deserve an NBA team.
Fine, move the team. Oh, man. All right, so with that being said, let's go ahead and move into the final part of tonight. I want to hear some hot takes from the draft. Not just Pistons related, but your hot takes from the draft. And I'll start things off, and I think you might actually disagree with me considering I think we talked about this a little bit. But my hot take for the draft, and it is going to be inside the top 5, Jonathan Kuminga will jump into the top 4 in this draft. He will beat out the likes of someone like a Jalen Suggs or an Evan Mobley or maybe even a Jalen Green. Probably not Jalen Green, but maybe one of the other two. But Jonathan Kuminga will be picked in the top 4 in this draft. There's my hot take right there.
Well, my first question to you on that, is there a team that you think probably would be logically eyeing him, like Cleveland or Toronto? I don't think Houston, it even brought him for a workout, if I'm not mistaken. But
Houston, I
know Houston did bring Mobley in for a workout.
Yes, Houston, I wouldn't be surprised if they aren't even looking Jonathan Kuminga's way. That makes sense.
But I think so. You have to be implying that either Toronto or Cleveland,
and I think both teams could be interested in him. I do, just based on player that he is. I mean, he's 6'8", 210 pounds. He can play the wing. He's got length out there. He's a small forward, and you look at how Toronto won a title. It was with a wing leading the way. And I'm not saying Jonathan Kuminga is going to be Kawhi Leonard, but you have a guy who can turn into a superstar in this league. His ceiling is ridiculously high.
Yeah, he just needs to learn how to play basketball.
Yeah. We talked about this the other day when we went out for lunch or whatever, but how are there so many guys in this league that need to learn how to play basketball? Like, shit, I'll sign a minimum contract to go sit on a G League roster
size and length
and learn how to play basketball. But Jonathan Kuminga is obviously he's touted where he is because of what he's able to do, and he's no slouch. I know you and I kind of write him off because we don't want a project, but if there is a team out there that's willing to take on a project, I would argue both Cleveland and Toronto would be willing to take on a project. His ceiling is stupid high. Like, I would argue he's possibly got the second highest ceiling in this draft. And that is enticing for some of the teams that are a little bit lower down on the totem pole in terms of who's ready to win. And Cleveland is one of those, and they need a wing. They don't need another guard, and that's where Jalen Suggs doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. They don't need another guard. They need a wing.
Yeah, I think it would have to be Cleveland because I don't see Toronto doing it. I think Toronto is trying to get back to the playoffs this year.
See, I'm not so sold on that considering how willing they are to shop Kyle Lowry around. That's why I'm not sold on Toronto being ready to try to start winning.
I just think Kyle Lowry is no longer part of that core. I think their core now is Van Fleet, Siakam, OG Anunoby, and whoever they get in this draft.
That's fine, but you add a guy like Kuminga to that, and maybe it looks pretty damn good. But it doesn't matter because they're picking number 4, right? Yeah, mm-hmm. It doesn't matter who they get; it's going to be a project. You know what I mean? Like
a lot of people haven't taken Suggs right now, which actually I love that fit.
Oh, I do too. I love the fit with Jalen Suggs, but he's another guy who I don't think is quite ready to be a number 1 type guy on a team. He's got a lot of maturity. But
not ready to be number 1 yet, but he's ready to contribute for sure,
I think he would be a contributor off the bench for them right away, yes. I don't think he's ready to start him and be a superstar or be a big contributor, 35 minutes a game right away. But he may be a guy who starts later on in the year. But I think day 1, he's a guy who's coming off the bench, logging some good minutes for them, 20, 25 minutes. And then as the year goes by, you see his minutes increase. Kind of like what the Pistons did with Sadiq Bey last year. A little bit like that. But a little bit more minutes at the beginning. But Jonathan Kuminga, I think, is a guy that, because their core is young enough and under contract, because they did have Van Vliet sign that big contract. I believe Siakam and Anunoby at least have a few more years left on their rookie deals, so they're still cheap. I think you're looking at a situation with Kuminga where if you can get him to turn around and become a contributing player by the time he's 20 years old, maybe 21, that's when the team is still ready to win. And they're still able to compete. And Kuminga, with the ceiling that he has, could be the star they're looking for off the wing. And Cleveland, same deal. I mean, that's a team who was even further back in their rebuild. And Kuminga really kind of fits into what they need as well, because a guard in that spot doesn't make sense. You could argue that Evan Mobley makes sense there, but I mean they've got some names that they can plug in at the big man spot. Or if they value the ceiling of Kuminga, considering they're a few years off anyways, it works for their timeline. So, and with the ceiling that Kuminga has and the amount of love I've seen him get recently in the media from scouts and from the media, that's what's really kind of fueled me to say that, okay, maybe he does end up going top 5 in this draft or top 4 in this draft, is because of all the things I've been reading about him. A lot of scouts and teams love him.
Yeah.
So
it's a hot take. So
it is this is what this is. It's a hot take.
Yeah.
It's a hot take
because to me, like guys like Scotty Barnes and Book Knight have been skyrocketing in terms of their draft value right now. And there's been a lot of reports that Orlando Magic, for example, are pretty fixated on Scotty Barnes at 5. And I'm honestly,
actually going to sell you one better on my second hot take, and I'll piggyback this off with you. Scotty Barnes is going to go number 4 overall.
Whoa.
Yep.
Your hot takes are kind of contradicting.
I know, right? But, it's hot take.
So basically what I was getting at is considering the way Scotty Barnes and Book Knight have been rising, I could see Kuminga go to like 7, for example.
It's fine. And I'll tell you this. Here, I'll put my hot take together. One of Kuminga or Scotty Barnes will be taken in the top 4.
It's a very interesting take.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
That's just because based on the fact that I think Jalen Suggs has really kind of fallen off and soured with scouts. Not so much that he's going to fall outside the top 10, but I think he falls maybe to like 6, 7.
My hot take is that Golden State is not picking at either 7 or 14.
I would not be shocked with that. I think they will be moving up into the top. I think they might even try to go for the top 5.
I think they may even just trade for an established star straight up.
Oh, God, that would be interesting.
They've been pretty vocal about wanting a star of that team.
They have. And their window is closing.
Yeah.
Because you think about it, it makes sense because they tried to do grab the young guy that could become a star last year, and it didn't work with Wiseman. Well, all right, let's do this. Yeah. Let's trade 7, 14 and Wiseman. Let's get, Karl Anthony Towns or Jimmy Butler or...
they've been wanting Damian Lillard, for example. Those could be 2 very valuable trade chips.
I just don't understand. I just don't see how Dame works. I
don't either.
I guess with a roster like with Steph, Clay, and Dame,
Clay at the 3, maybe. I guess.
Well, you could do that.
Very undersized 3.
Well, he's 6'7", isn't he?
6'5". Am I off?
No, he's taller than that. He's taller than 6'5".
Yeah, 6'6".
6'6". He's
maybe a bit of an undersized
with a 6'9", but he's got a 6'9" wingspan. And he's 215 pounds. I think he'd be just fine at the 3.
Yeah.
But it would be a very small lineup because their center's only 6'7". So, but there's only so many
deadly offensive lineup.
It would, but there's only so many. There's only one basketball on the floor.
Yeah, there you go.
I'd make the argument that bringing Damian Lillard in would be Klay Thompson insurance. Because the dude's missed the last 2 years of basketball. We don't know what Klay is going to be. We're under the assumption that Klay Thompson's going to return to form pre-injuries. We don't know what that's going to happen. And could he get injured again? He's obviously shown that he's struggling to stay healthy right now. And I feel really bad for the guy because I love Klay Thompson. But I would argue Damian Lillard would be an insurance policy for Klay Thompson.
So your hot take number 2 got combined to one big hot take?
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Scotty Barnes?
Yeah.
And did you have a third one? Or
No, that was
those 2?
It was
all
one
right,
of
so
those
I'll give you my second one then. My hot take is that Cleveland trades out of the 3 spot. So there have been a lot of reports that Cleveland is kind of hesitant about the fit between Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. I'm personally of the belief that when you're picking a guy like Evan Mobley, you just take him, worry about fit later.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Which at that point, I would feel really bad for Jared Allen because dude's legit he's a stud. He just somehow gets screwed over every team he's on.
Yeah. I think they like him enough that I would be shocked if the Cavs aren't planning on re-signing Jared Allen.
No, I completely agree.
And there's no world where I see him taking Jalen Suggs. It just doesn't make sense for them.
Also agree.
So I could legitimately see them moving back, maybe with OKC moving up to number 3 spot and taking Mobley, for example. Maybe even moving back with Golden State.
Do you believe in any of the
Golden
rumors?
State with Mobley would be beautiful. That's a beautiful fit if you ask me.
That would be what they wanted with Wiseman.
Yeah. Wiseman's nowhere near that kind of player.
Right. But do you believe in any of the rumors? Because that would allow Draymond Green to do what he is good at. You wouldn't have to ask him to shoot and score ever again.
Yeah.
He'd be able to do what he's comfortable and good at doing. And Evan Mobley can take the role of what you have been asking Draymond to do for years. Mm-hmm. It would work beautifully in Golden State. Now, do you believe any of the rumors that Cleveland is looking to potentially trade Colin Sexton?
Oh, yeah. I 100% buy those rumors. I think they're over that Sexland backcourt.
Sexton what backcourt?
Sexland. Colin Sexton, Darius Garland. Sexland.
That is
the first time you've heard that?
Yes, it is.
Oh, my God.
I've never heard that before. I love it, though. Why would you be over that?
That's the best backcourt nickname in the NBA.
It absolutely is. Why would you ever be over it? I would literally keep them just to have that nickname. Like, that's way better than the Splash Brothers.
But here's the thing. I'm having trouble gauging what Sexton's trade value will be. I, for one, wouldn't want the Pistons to trade for him.
Nope.
I do think because here's the thing. I think the Cavaliers' price is going to be high on Sexton.
As it should be. He's a good player.
I don't think there's a lot of teams that are going to be willing to pay up for Sexton.
No, I also agree with that. Like, Colin Sexton is a good player. Mm-hmm. He's able to score the ball at will anytime he wants. And he can shoot well. But, and it's a big but, he struggles with getting teammates involved.
Yeah, he's a bit of a ball stopper.
In a big way. And that's where, a team like Washington could make sense because, well, Russell Westbrook probably isn't going to be there that much longer. Bradley Beal's already said he wants out. So maybe Sexton could work there. Or, I don't know, Orlando, where he can be his own guy and do whatever the hell he wants. But they just won't be very good. But it's tough with a guy like Colin Sexton who is a point guard but doesn't get his teammates involved. So you almost got to put him on a team where he can, be really good, but they're not going to do anything.
No, I truly view Colin Sexton as an undersized two guard. He's a two guard through and through. If he was 3 inches taller, he would be playing nothing but the two.
Right, but he's also a really good ball handler.
Yeah.
So the ball needs to, and he creates his own shot better than he gets his shot off ball. So the ball needs to be in his hand for him to be successful. And that's what the problem is with Colin Sexton is because he's not that as good of an off-ball player as he is with the ball in his hands. When the ball in his hands, though, your team doesn't really succeed. So it's one of those guys that you just can't win with. So that's where he needs to go to a team like Orlando or something like that where you're not expected to win, but you can still be really good, get your money, and otherwise he's got to change his game to be able to win in this league.
Agreed.
So I don't know how many teams are going to come calling. I don't anticipate it being a ton, and his asking price is going to be very high, as it should be, because he is a good player.
Not to mention, do you think he commands a max contract next year?
I do.
So you have that to worry about if you trade for him.
Absolutely. In this league, he definitely deserves a max contract in this league. It's just one of those guys that, and to a lesser extent, I mean, there's other guys out there that I just don't think you can win with, and I think Russell Westbrook is one of those guys. I mean, it took having James Harden and Russell Westbrook just to get them to the finals. Granted, they or not Russell Westbrook, James Harden and Kevin Durant, just to get them to the finals. And granted, they were a lot younger, but they were still really good players. I think Brody is a guy that's really tough to win with because of how much he commands the basketball. Yes, he gets his teammates involved, but the way he plays just doesn't win. And I would argue it's even more to the extreme with Colin Sexton.
I'll agree. I've always said a ball stopper who's not a great defender is kind of like poison. And
plays the point guard is poison.
Yeah. Like it's fool's gold, I think is a better way to put it.
Yeah, I think one of the worst things you can have on your roster is a ball stopper at the point guard position. And, you want to argue, oh, Steph's a ball stopper or Trey's a ball stopper. Well, I mean, they get their teammates involved a lot.
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't argue it.
Especially in Steph's case, they move off ball really well. Really well.
Now, here's my final question before we close out the show, because I do want to make sure we get this in, considering it's our last show before the draft. Do you think the Pistons make a second first-round pick?
I think it's definitely possible. They've got 3 second-round picks, and I know Troy Weaver loves the second-round picks, but I think the Pistons are going to be willing to move back into the first round. I mean, we saw it last year. with the willingness to move in back into the first round last year. So I think it would be, let's just say this, I would be surprised, and I mean really surprised, if the Pistons don't make any other moves in this draft.
Oh, I'd be shocked if we use all our second round picks and actually pick
exactly.
Three
and I think the Pistons
would even have room on our roster for that.
Right. And I think the Pistons would be looking to use those second round picks and maybe future picks down the road to try to move back into the first round and take a second guy in that first round.
So don't turn your TVs off when after the Pistons pick up one.
Absolutely
Stay
not.
tuned.
Or and this is where I've been saying that there's guys on the roster, because you did see that they offered qualifying offers to Frank Jackson and Hamidou Diallo. Mm-hmm. So that means those are restricted free agents. Mm-hmm. So we're likely bringing them back. I think Frank Jackson should just sign it. Yeah. And Hamidou Diallo probably is going to get some money.
I'm looking forward to not having to hate Frank Jackson this year.
Same.
Like actually enjoying him scoring, it would be nice.
But with bringing guys like that in, there are some expendable players on this roster. Mm-hmm. Guys like Josh Jackson may not be there day one. Yeah. Guys like Mason Plumlee.
I think those are your two most likely trade assets, right?
I do too. And honestly, especially Josh Jackson, because he wasn't bad last year. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Pistons package a couple of seconds in Josh Jackson to move to like 24, 25. Yeah. I don't hate the idea. I would love the idea. I would welcome it with open arms, and I think I'd be shocked if something like that doesn't happen.
And the bittersweet part about it is I do think I like Josh Jackson even more on this team now that we should have two really good facilitators at both guard positions.
Oh, I don't disagree.
Which would make up for Josh Jackson's tunnel vision, basically.
Yes, and I don't disagree. But again, you can make the argument that guys having Sadiq Bey, Jeremy Grant, Hamidou Diallo, it pushes Josh Jackson further down that pecking order. So how many minutes does a guy like Josh Jackson actually get?
He's definitely going to be playing with the second unit. That's for sure. But I would also...
At best, the second unit.
I would also argue that you're going to have one of Cade and Kill. You should be having one of Cade or Kill on the court at all times.
Oh, I absolutely hope you do. So. And if you don't, what the hell is Dwayne Casey doing? Yeah. Like, there should be no more than 5 minutes in the game where neither of those two guys are on the court.
Yeah. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. That's for next week.
We haven't even taken Cade yet.
Yeah.
But he's a Piston, right? Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this before we close it out.
What is it? What's best case scenario? What will make you happy?
No. All right. Two questions. What is your best case scenario for Thursday night?
We take Cade Cunningham.
Thursday night or Thursday night?
Thursday night. We take Cade Cunningham.
That's it?
Oh, you want like the full thing?
Yeah, I want the full thing. What's your best case scenario?
We take Cade Cunningham. We package 2 or 3 of our second round picks, plus maybe a Mason Plumlee or a Josh Jackson, to move back up into the back of the first round and take someone like maybe a Bones Highland or a Zaire Williams if he drops, or Chris Duarte.
To fill some more holes in this team.
Maybe even Isaiah Todd.
I'll echo that and say that's exactly what I want us to do also. Because again, I think there certain guys in this roster are becoming redundant with what we have and what we're bringing in. And I ain't going to lie to you, I also want to leave some space in this roster to bring in a potential superstar next year. Mm-hmm. So, and that's where we're going to be able to get it. So, But that would be my best case scenario as well. As long as we get Cade Cunningham and then trade back into the first round some way without giving up Cade, Grant, Bay, or Stewart, anybody else, fine and dandy, that's my best case scenario to add to this roster. But second question is, Cade Cunningham, Detroit Piston next year, are you buying a jersey?
100%.
All right.
It's going to be the first Pistons jersey that I have owned since Chauncey Billups.
I think I've said this before, but I don't think I've personally bought or owned a jersey in this town since like Stevie Y or Chauncey or Ben.
Oh, I've never personally bought a
I had a
jersey.
Verlander jersey. Just kidding. I had a Verlander jersey. That's the last one I've owned.
I've never personally bought a Pistons jersey, which is surprising considering how big of a Pistons fan I am.
That is kind of surprising.
I had a Chauncey jersey that was gifted to me, and everything else was stuff I got at the game.
But
like the free jersey I'd give up.
To continue with what I was saying, like I'm not a big jersey guy. I'm much more of like a t-shirt or hoodie or crew shirt type.
There's just
guy.
not many situations where you can wear a jersey.
Right. So I'm not a big jersey guy. Plus, I also think it's just kind of weird to wear the name of another dude. I don't know. It's just me. I'm weird. But Cade may make me want to get one, and I might not necessarily be one that I wear, but it might be one that I frame and put up in the man cave.
Well, now I'm rocking that.
We'll find out. So, but anyways, that is going to call for this week, guys. Say your prayers, do your happy dances, do whatever. Just that the draft goes well and we don't somehow accidentally give them the wrong name or give Adams over the wrong name, that we get the guy we should in Cade Cunningham. And, the luck finally went our way. So let's complete the prophecy and get Cade Cunningham here. So, but anyways, thank you guys for listening. Follow us on Twitter @RealFanReport. Next time you'll hear us is after the NBA draft. Andrew, thank you for joining me. Thank you to Detroit Sports Podcast as well. This has been the Fan Reporters. Bye, fans.
For fans.
We will catch you guys next week. Enjoy your draft night and enjoy the rest of your weekend, your weekend. See you later. Peace out.